Here's a feeling every Melburnian knows. You get to a station, you look up at the board, and the next train is in 22 minutes. So you do the maths and you decide to drive instead. Once you've made that decision a few times, you stop checking the board at all. You don't even show up to the station. The train just stops being part of your life. Now, the usual argument about fixing that turns into a fight about money. Oh, it's too expensive, we can't afford it, we've got to pick a lane. But I want to show you something, because there are cities that already ran this experiment. They spent the money, they put more trains on, and now we have years of hard data to show what happens next. And the results are not close. Stick with me, because by the end of this, I think you'll want more trains too. And I'll show you the one project in Melbourne that's actually building around the reason that works. Let's look at the proof. Let's start with London, because the cleanest example we've got. In May 2022, London opened the Elizabeth line, a line very similar to the Metro tunnel. It's a new high-capacity route straight through the middle of the city, tying the existing network together. Before it opened, Transport for London modelled how many people would use it. Their forecast was somewhere between 104 and 136 million journeys a year once it was fully running. 3 years in, the line had carried 546 million journeys in total. It overtook the entire lifetime ridership of the London Overground, a network that had been running since 2007. On a busy day, it now carries more than 800,000 trips. It blew past its own forecast so hard that Transport for London had to keep revising the forecasts upward. But the ridership isn't even the part I want you to remember from this. It's about what has shown up around those stations as well. In the first year, 125,000 new jobs were registered within 1 kilometre of the Elizabeth Line station. Between 2015 and 2024, 71,000 new homes went up in that same 1 kilometre band, with tens of thousands more in the pipeline. Housing growth near the stations ran well above the areas that were further away. The train didn't just move people who were already there. It changed where people chose to live and to build and to work. That's a good thing the train line actually does. It's not a cost you carry, it's a thing that generates. It's an investment. And before anyone says, oh, London's a special case, it's a global city, of course it works there. Let's look to the west of our country. Let's look at Perth. It's not a city anyone initially would hold up as a transport superpower. But let's investigate it. In December of 2024, they opened the new Allenbrook line, a 21 kilometre extension with 5 new stations out to the fast growing corridor northeast of Perth City. Allenbrook had been growing over 6% a year, and there was 50,000 people with essentially no rail. The new line cut the trip to the city by about 30 minutes, running trains every 12 minutes at peak. Then 6 months later, Perth opened a new cross-orbital line, the Thornlie-Coburn link. That was their first proper east-west connection, linking 2 lines that used to only run to the city and back. Remember that one, because it matters for what's coming ahead in this video. There's also a live one we can watch happen in real time. Auckland switches on its City Rail link, sort of an equivalent to our Metro tunnel, on the 13th of September this year. Twin tunnels under the CBD, trains every 4 to 5 minutes at peak, representing a 50% jump in how many people can access the city centre. If that sounds familiar, that's the exact play Melbourne took with the Metro tunnel. Auckland is about to find out what the promise of good infrastructure holds. I'll be covering it when those numbers land. Stay tuned. So, why does funding more services work so well? That's the bit worth understanding, because it's also the key to the biggest, most argued about project on Melbourne's books. So Melbourne's train network has a shape, and the shape is a problem. Almost every line runs like a spoke on a wheel. It carries you into the city, it carries you back out, which is great if the city is where you're going, but most trips aren't like that. Most of life in Melbourne happens in the suburbs. You're going from Box Hill to Monash, from Reservoir to Broadmeadows, across the city, rather than into it. And on a network shaped like ours, a trip like that means riding all the way in and back out. So you don't take the train, you drive. That's the only effective option for you. So here's the idea that changes everything, how it changed London. It's called the network effect. When you add a connection that links lines together, you don't just add one new route, you make every line it touches more useful, because suddenly they all connect to each other in a more effective way. A single orbital link turns dozens of separate dead-end journeys into one connected system. The value doesn't grow by the kilometre you build, it grows by every new trip those kilometres unlock. That's why the Elizabeth line beat its forecast so badly. It wasn't a new line sitting on its own. It stitched the existing network into something worth more than the sum of its parts. Perth's Thornley-Coburn line, the east-west connection I told you to remember, is the same move on a smaller budget. It's one link across the spokes, and every line it touches gets better, gets easier. And that brings us to a project everyone in Victoria is about to spend an election arguing about. It's a project with so much media attention, so much disinformation. Can you guess it? The Suburban Rail Loop is a 90-kilometre orbital line, a ring around Melbourne that connects to every major radial line from Frankston all the way around to Werribee. On paper, it is the network effect turned into concrete. It's designed to take Melbourne's radial system and finally close the loop, with big interchange hubs at Clayton, Broadmeadows and Sunshine, built specifically to catch those cross-suburban and regional trips that today are basically impossible or not effective by train. Now let's get really honest about this. We need the truth, because I'm not just going to try to sell you the SRL. There's a real argument about whether a fully bored tens of billions of dollars tunnel is the right way to capture that value, to utilise the network effect. Melbourne already runs about 4 orbital smart bus routes, and they've been among the best used buses in the city for over a decade. So there is some evidence to suggest that the demand is there for cross-suburban travel, and it's not just theory. It's already out there riding buses right now. Critics point out that comparable orbital rail lines overseas have often been built elevated instead of tunnelled in cities like Vancouver and Montreal at something like a third of the cost. An independent analysis of SRL's own modelling found its effect on total bus use was hard to detect, because a lot of those trips just shift from bus onto a new rail line rather than being brand new. But is the network effect real? Absolutely. The proof is sitting in London, in Perth, in Tokyo, in Paris. Is a board heavy rail the cheapest way for Melbourne to buy it? That's the open question, and I'm not going to sell you any ideas on that. But here's where I land on all this, and it's the reason I made this video. Melbourne added 142,000 people last year, the most of any city in the country as far as I know. We're on track to be the biggest city in Australia. Those people are landing in exactly the outer suburbs where the trains are least frequent and cross-suburban trips are hardest. The demand for it isn't coming, it's already here, but people just don't have the option to take the trains because there's not enough service. We now have years of evidence from London, from Perth, from Tokyo, from dozens of cities that the single most reliable way to get people out of cars and allow them to have the opportunity to take trains, it's embarrassingly simple. Run more services more often to more places and connect them up so the whole network is worth more than just parts. When you improve every rail line, run more trains, the compounding effect adds up and you get a good economic outcome. So this isn't me telling you to back one party here. In November, Victoria votes, and my ask is simply for every single party that really has a chance to want to run this state, it's the same. Put a real funded number against how many train services and better connections you can make for the public transport network. Argue about how. Argue about building more tunnels or running more trains, about SRL versus alternatives, about how you stage it and cost. I want to see what party can deliver the most services for Melbourne. Is it 1,000 more services? 2,000? You could say, oh, there's no budget for that. But running more trains and buses is relatively cheap. Building new systems, however, is not so much. So that's the challenge I've set for every political party in this state. If you've enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I'm going to see you in the next one. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.